look at where the labyrinth overlays the land, when you've got the constellations locked in with the belt of Orion over the pyramids, then if you then go down from the celestial labyrinth, you'll find the position of the terrestrial labyrinth. And then he said that he'd done that and located this terrestrial labyrinth at a place called Hawara, and that there were some signs around there that he was right, and this was exactly the place as described by the Greek philosophers, and that it was buried there, but it would cost a lot of money to excavate it because it was below the water table. Well, I started checking out some of these claims, and I realised when looking at the retrograde loops that because of this 2.4 degree difference in the pentagram when it comes back after 8 years, it's actually exactly 8 Maya halves, by the way. That's why they didn't have the 2 leap days we use, because they were using the 365-day half calendar as a sort of check for the position of Venus. That's why if you look at the date that we had the Venus transit into 2004, it was on the 8th of June, and in 2012 it's due on the 6th of June. So you've got this 2-day difference, which is exactly 8 years minus the 2 leap days we put in. It's exactly 8 Maya halves.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I realised that if you map out the positions of these retrograde loops of Venus over Orion, you find that, well, every 8 halves, you get another one occurring over there with 2.4 degrees difference. So you've got a series of these retrograde loops positioned over Orion from about the 1920s through the present day and into the future. And so if you then use some of this astronomical software and find the pattern that this made in the sky and the exact position in 9792 BC and look for a match, it actually matches up around 1920 to 1930 was the best match. So in other words, according to that theory, the world should have come to an end then.
Already, okay.
Yeah, and it didn't. And the second thing I checked up was I found a map of the Giza Pyramid area, and I superimposed the star map onto it so that the 3 belt stars matched up with the Giza Pyramids. Then I found the Labyrinth constellation in the Hyades and superimposed it onto the ground, and it was absolutely in the wrong direction. It was actually about a mile north of the Giza Pyramids, where if you superimpose the Labyrinth constellation onto the ground, whereas the Hawara position where they said the Labyrinth was about 15 miles to the west of the pyramids. So it actually didn't match up at all, and then I realised that actually they hadn't discovered that position in Hawara, because there'd been several Egyptologists going back to Flinders Petrie who'd sort of been presuming that position at Hawara was where the labyrinth was, and they'd come up with various reasonings for that over the years, and various visits and studies. Various people had concluded that was where it was. And just recently, actually, Gerold has inspired a team from a Belgian university to go to Egypt with ground-penetrating radar, and they seem to have confirmed, without a doubt, that Hawara is the position of the labyrinth. Now, good for him, because that's the first time that ground-penetrating radar has been used there, and it might end up in the place being excavated, and it may be he's right, and that it does contain information about that will be relevant to us in 2012. But the other part of the theory doesn't actually hang together. That this retrograde loop of Venus over Orion means the world's going to end in 2012. That doesn't hold together. Nor does the positioning of the labyrinth, finding out the celestial labyrinth, position us with the terrestrial labyrinth, because that is a completely separate issue that's been implied by archaeologists already.
All right, and also then, as far as I understand it, this has to do with something that someone said in that regard. This has to do with the mythology of what the people from the alleged Atlantis said, and passed on this knowledge down, that when this sign in the heavens basically again occurs, that's when this will happen again, right? I mean, it could be a case of that he's intuited something and just,
in his search for confirmation of it, has sort of jumped onto the wrong bit of information. And I mean, he may, and like a lot of people with these things, they intuit something. I mean, this has occurred to me that this is why that McKenna came up with the time wave, because it could be that he intuited the whole 2012 thing and then looked around for something to explain it, you know, and it may be that that these ways we have of explaining it are not actually that relevant, but the most important thing is that they're concentrating us on that transition point, and that might be the most important factor. Right.
Well, it's interesting nonetheless, and I hope that the guys find something down there in Egypt and locate the labyrinth here on Earth. That would be a fantastic discovery, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah. In fact, yes. Someone just sent me the link for this site this week.
Okay.
So it does look to be quite interesting what's going on down there.
Maybe you can pass it on to me, Geoff, and I can link this up in relation to this interview also as well, so people can take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing that actually kicked off Geralt's fear in the first place was reading the Mayan prophecies, and I found in there also that some of the, I mean, again, this may be another case because it does seem something's going on with the sun. I mean, there's plenty of evidence. Mitch Batros is covering that a lot now.
Yes.
If you look at the general trajectory of sunspots over the years, that it is going in an upward trajectory. We've just had a complete disappearance of them recently, haven't we?
Isn't that interesting? I think it's the most quiet, allegedly, has it been in the last 100 years or something. It's incredibly quiet. Nothing at all is happening. So it's a little bit like the quiet before the storm, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, again, when it comes down to the details, I found checking out the details of how that was all worked out in the Mayan prophecies didn't really hang together, because the figures that they've got for working all these complex numbers out from, it all stems down to the periods of rotation of the equatorial and polar fields on the sun. There are 4 equatorial fields and 2 polar fields that rotate at different speeds, causing the magnetic field lines to get tangled up and cause these sunspots to pop out on the surface.
Right.
Well, when I tried to find confirmation for those figures, I used the nearest figures I could find, official figures for those rotational periods, and worked out the the things which they'd worked out in their book, and it came out as about 1,000-year error when you multiply it up into the longest cycle. So it didn't tie together on that level, but yet there does seem to be something going on with the sun.
Yes, indeed. So I mean, it's going to be very interesting, just keeping an eye on this, obviously, as we progress forward. I mean, 4 years, it's not that long of a period away, and especially when things are moving so fast as they're doing now in regards to time, at least for me, and you mentioned it yourself at the beginning of this program, that things seem to be speeding up. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting watching this. If you can, to begin to round things up here for the second segment, in a nutshell, I know it's very difficult, but